Welcome back to Movie Guys Improvise, the MGI podcast. You're listening to the voices of
Chill with Rooms.
Jurassic Mark.
and Faerhad Targaryen. Last month's episode was the Disney classic Mulan. Personal favorite of mine. If you haven't seen that yet, it's right there. It's available on Disney Plus. Check that movie out first before you go and check out our review of it. Today, we're going to be reviewing a movie from, at this point, almost 20 years ago, 2002. Catch Me If You Can, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Hanks, Christopher Walken. Great film based on a book, which was based on a true story about Frank Abagnale. I'm gonna butcher this name. Abagnale, I think the character's name is real.
Yeah, I think so.
So this was a great film, as I was telling you guys off the record. But before I go ahead and give you my impressions, Realms, this was your choice. Tell us why you chose it and what it is, what it's all about.
So essentially, it's about a young kid whose family is going through issues, and he's forced to choose between which parent he's going to stay with. And instead of choosing, he decides to run away and try to build his life in his own way to be able to support them and help them get back together. So he's going through the movie finessing the system, majority of the movie. And why I chose it, it's one of my favorite movies since a long time back, like years back. So my vote for it at the end is probably going to be a little bit biased just because I love the movie so much. But yeah, I just wanted to share it with you guys.
Hey man, like I've been pretty biased with some of the scores I give movies, and yeah. So it was one of your favorite movies from way back when. Like I was saying, it came out in December 2002. So by next year, this movie's 20 years old. It's pretty crazy.
I didn't even know that at all.
Yeah. So I haven't ever seen it fully. Like I've seen parts of it on TV and stuff, but I've never seen the whole thing from beginning to end. I gotta say, yo, this was a really, really good movie. It keeps you hooked. It was almost like a comedy to me. I know it's like based on a true story, and most like semi biographical films or whatever usually aren't comedies. But I felt like this film had an underlying comedic tone to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At least that's what it felt like.
Yeah, it had this sort of light tone to it. My dad would have called this a lark, which is his term for just a fun, breezy movie. So yeah.
It is a fun, breezy movie. I mean, it deals with pretty important, subject matter. I'm not taking away from that, but yeah. So Lark, as Daddy Jurassic Mark puts it, or
We could call him like Triassic Mark, I guess.
Yeah.
That's the period before. So okay.
Oh man, cool. So the only thing though, as first impressions go, like I liked it a lot, but the fact that it's based on a true story, and like after you see it, after you're all hyped up and you start to read about like the facts of the movie, then it's like, I know they take certain liberties to make it a movie. You kind of have to do those things. But the real life Abagnale said that he trusted this director, Steven Spielberg, who I think did direct Jurassic Park, right? Was that the same person? Yeah.
Yeah, that was Spielberg.
Yeah. So Abagnale was saying this was the director he trusted to get the job done in terms of directing goes. So there were certain beats to this movie that I think I missed a little bit, but just as first impressions go, like Jam, you liked it, right? Like, was this your first time? This wasn't your first time seeing it, right? I'm guessing you have seen it before.
No, yeah, I saw this before. I can't remember when, but yeah, this was a rewatch for me, and it holds up. I liked it.
Got you. Okay, so as far as story beats go, I was watching this with my cousin and his wife, and something that they were mentioning, I guess I just missed it, was that like she was mentioning how, wow, this dude has he's going through a really messed up childhood, talking about Frank, and apparently that was because his mom was cheating on his dad. James Brolin was in this movie, right? And he plays Jack Barnes, who I'm guessing there was this one scene. I mean, there was a montage of scenes where there was this trick of both Frank and his father, Frank Sr., who was like secretly stealing a necklace and saying, "Hey, did you drop this?" or something along those lines, right? But then in the first act of the movie, Frank Frank Abagnale Jr. says, "Sir, you're missing a pin or something, missing a pin on the couch." And apparently that was supposed to imply that that guy was cheating, was sleeping with his mom against his father's back. Was that right? Like that's what was going on.
I think
This
so.
no, but it was not so much like the pen, but the fact that she's in the room with him and the door's closed, and she's like, "Oh, he's here to talk to your father, but why are y'all in the room with the door closed?" So it's like that revealed it sooner, but the pen was more so like if he didn't give it back to him, his father probably would have found out about it sooner.
I see. I mean, did they ever even really reveal whether his father found out about it? By the end of the movie, or toward the end of the movie, it's revealed that his father died, and
Mm-hmm.
he escapes on that airplane and goes to his mom's house to see that his mom has just started a whole nother family. Like he has a little baby half sister. Well, not a baby half sister, but like a little girl who's his sister. And she apparently married that guy that she was cheating on his father with. So I guess that implication was true, that's exactly what was going on there, I guess.
I think it was the second time that he met back up with his father that he told him, yes, his mother left him for his old coworker.
Okay.
He knew.
Okay, I must have missed that then. But I do have to point out though, like as I was reading about this after I had watched the movie, because it was a really good movie, right? That apparently that's one of the parts of the movie that's fabricated from real life. I don't think ever since Abagnale became like this con man, this con artist, he ever got to see his father ever again. At least I don't think so from what I read. So all of those parts are completely made up.
I didn't even know that.
The only other thing, as a movie, the only other issue I think I would have with it is just, this is an old movie, but in general, I'm kind of tired of how Hollywood thinks that they can always get away with casting young adults as teenagers. Because Leonardo DiCaprio, I mean, he was a heartthrob, right? Like his first really, really big movie was Titanic. Everybody knows Titanic, right? And that was several years before this movie came out. I think he was in his 20s when they were filming Catch Me If You Can, but he was playing a teenager. He was playing, I think Abagnale was like 16 or 17 during the events of the movie. And he looks young, but he doesn't look so young that I could believe that he was a teenager, you know? Hollywood tends to do this sort of thing, and it doesn't really fly with me. Like I wasn't convinced that this guy is a teenager, looks like a teenager. But barring that fact, Leonardo DiCaprio is still like a really, really good actor. I know people back in the day used to make fun of him all the time because he gets nominated for this movie and nominated for this movie, but he never wins an Oscar until that one movie with him fighting a bear. What was it
Oh,
called?
the bear movie. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't remember what it was called. Yeah, he finally got his Oscar.
yeah, it was like the Revenant or the Covenant or something.
Yeah, the Revenant, I think it's called.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
but yeah, people were always like, it was practically a meme about how he was just never winning an Oscar. But in my opinion, if you get nominated and on top of that you get nominated that many times, it pretty much shows how good of an actor you are. I mean, like the Academy has issues of its own, so I don't give them that much credibility anymore these days anyway. But I'm just saying, if you have that many nominations, it kind of goes to show that you are a really good actor, right? And that's my main point here, is that the cast of this movie really, really delivered. Martin Sheen is also in this movie.
Yeah.
A legendary actor. So,
And of course, Tom Hanks has, I think, at least 2 Oscars.
oh yeah, and he's Woody, right, from Toy Story.
Yep, Woody.
And Forrest Gump. So yeah, he's got some.
Well, and like a young Amy Adams. Like this is back when she was an unknown actress, but yeah, she's huge now.
Yeah, she was in this
Yeah.
movie called Jewel and Julie, I think, and of course
Yeah.
she's Lois Lane in the unfortunately failed DCEU, but still great
Oh,
actress.
yeah.
The thing about Tom Hanks' character is in this movie he's called Carl Hanratty, but that's another thing they had to change. But that kind of makes sense because he worked for the FBI, and I guess for the real guy's actual privacy, they changed the name of the character in the movie. In real life, the FBI agent's name was Joseph Shea, it seems like, or he was based on Joseph Shea, but like I was saying, for that, I can kind of understand why they would change the name. You know what I mean? So that was fine. So the part of the movie that was most memorable, in my opinion, was when Hanratty and his team of FBI agents show up to the wedding, and Abagnale sees them and he starts freaking out. So he grabs Brenda, who's Amy Adams. He grabs Brenda, brings her up into the bedroom, and just has to confess everything. Has to confess everything right then and there because he loves her. You can tell that like he truly loves her, and he's giving up his all of his secrets now just because he knows he has to go on the run again. But he wants her to come with her, right? And then the last thing she says is, just tell me your name. Tell me your name before you go. And he does that. And he trusts her to meet her at the airport. Because the dude is intelligent, he can tell that like when she's there, he has his binoculars and he sees that they're like other people with binoculars or something, that she's working with the FBI essentially. And he gets really upset over that. So that part of the movie hit a little different. I don't know if that was like if that actually happened in real life, but that part kind of hit different for me anyway.
Yeah, I actually didn't even notice the little subtle things the first time I watched it. Like when he first got there and he sees her standing there, I never actually paid attention to the fact that the guy walked right beside her and kind of said something to her and then walked away, and then she was like nodding to him about something.
Yeah. I didn't notice that either. I mean, like this was the first full time I was watching it, but I remember seeing a clip of that before, and that was a memorable scene. What I thought was kind of the most ironic was that scene with Abagnale and Roger, the attorney, like the father of Brenda. They're in a room together, and he's like, Roger's like, listen, you want to marry my daughter? I'm her father, and I feel like I deserve to know what's a dude like you want with her. Why do you want to marry her? And Leo Cap looks him in the eyes and says, look, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not nothing. I'm just a guy who's in love with your daughter. The thing is, was he like telling like was he meaning to tell the real truth there, or was he just being semi humble and being like, oh, I'm nothing, I just love her? You get what I'm saying?
I think he was trying to tell him the truth, and like Martin Sheen thought it was just poetic license. Just like, we are just hopeless romantics, you and I.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that was his plan that it would work like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I think he was just laying his cards on the table, and the guy just wasn't buying.
But it's like, hey, if he's going for it, hey, roll with it.
Oh my God. All right. Well, this kind of goes both ways because, well, that was on that was on Roger. For this is the first time you're meeting the dude and you're deciding to trust him on his word, for the first thing he says to you. But on the flip side, if Abagnale really wanted to do the right thing, he could have been like, all right, well, sir, just so you know, I mean, I'm literally nothing. Like, I'm literally not anything. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I just want to make that clear, if in case you didn't get that the first time. But that would have ruined it. I'm just saying, as a character, as a person, if he really wanted to do the right thing, that would have been the thing to do. But it wouldn't have made sense for the movie.
I just love that he's like, all right, so now you can ask me the question that you wanted to ask me. And then he asked about the bar. He's like, no. The other question you want to ask.
The other question. Yeah. I mean, I don't know many people in our age group who still do that, but yeah, just asking the father's permission is a very old tradition,
Yeah, I mean, it's not it's not unfair. It is like
no, it's not.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of quietly falling to the wayside a little bit, but it's still around. It's still a tradition for a lot of people.
It's one of those things like, if you do the groundwork, then you can ask. You don't have to ask. Like, you pretty much know whether they have your approval if you do.
Yeah.
Especially if you've known the person for a long time and the person's parents for a long time.
But now, there are some parents like they see it as a sign of respect, though.
Yeah. Well, with Sydney's parents, I just told them, just so you know, I am going to pop the question to Sydney. I'm not asking permission. I'm just giving you guys the heads up. So I figured that was a nice compromise because just it makes sense if you know the family, in this context. But yeah.
I mean, because at the end of the day, it's up to Sydney. It was up to
Yeah,
her.
exactly.
To marry you.
Hey, yep, she said yes, so we're good. Having our 3rd anniversary in September, so
Aw,
great, everything worked out.
that's right around the corner, dude.
Yeah, oh,
Hey, but at least you gave them a heads up, and they're not finding out about it after it happened.
yeah, I didn't want to blindside them, but yeah.
And you knew them, so yeah, you knew
Yeah,
Sydney for a while.
yeah,
You guys
exactly.
dated for a while, and you met her parents, obviously. So
Yep.
you know, this is in contrast with Abigail and Roger. It could
Yeah,
have been
yeah,
could have
just
been different.
shows up at
Yeah.
this dude's house.
It could have also been different, right? In real life, this could have also played out differently. But for the sake of this movie, it seemed like after their first meeting and they're talking about getting married that it's going this way, you know. So, and about that whole bar situation, I think it was from there that Roger helped him like get his bar license back. And then by the end of the movie, Hanreddy is asking him like, "Yo, how did you cheat on that bar exam?" And Abigail says, "I didn't cheat. I studied for 2 weeks and I passed." That's another thing I'm curious about. In the movie, I feel like he was telling the truth, but I feel like that's what actually happened. But that's another thing. Like I was trying to figure out if that was the case in real life as well. And that's kind of muddy for me. I wasn't sure if in real life, in fact, he did go past the bar exam or whatever, or if he cheated, or if that wasn't a thing, if he was just conning the entire time.
Well, one of the themes in the movie is that cheating is hard work, and it probably would have been easier for him just to study at that point than it would have been to try to cheat on the bar exam, because we saw how hard he was working forging those checks. Like he had a bathtub full of model airplanes to get the stickers.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
why he became such a professional at it, right? That's why he
yeah.
basically ended up working for the FBI in real life, right? Like he became one of the most proficient identifiers of fake checks.
Hmm.
They make a good example of it toward the end of the movie, right? So I have to say another part of the movie that I was quite curious about, and I guess you guys can fill me in on this. Jennifer Garner was in this, right? She was Cheryl Ann. Like she and Abigail were in a hotel together. Apparently, they knew each other, or they said that they had met previously. They start hooking up, but then Cheryl Ann wants pay for the night, and then she starts chucking these cards at him to get him to
Yeah,
guess what the rate is for the night.
yeah.
But does that mean that she was a prostitute? I'm only asking
Oh
because
no, she was totally a prostitute.
okay.
Well, yes, technically that night, no.
That's true. She didn't make any money. In fact, she lost like $400. But yeah,
Exactly.
That night.
attempted prostitute. Attempted prostitute. There we go.
I mean, technically, Abigail was the prostitute that night, right? If he was the one who made money off of her.
I guess. I mean, hey, Leo would probably be an expensive prostitute, if he was one. But
Hey, he made more than his first initial offer to her.
True.
Got 400.
Nice.
Oh man. So yeah, that's the thing is that like he was about to go, like he was gonna leave the hotel room to go and cash a bad check because he didn't have any cash on him. Like he had a few checks. He was gonna cash a check that said 1,000 on it, and she said, "Stop! The banks are closed right now. Like I'll just take the check." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, this one is for 1,400." She's like, "All right, I'll take that." That's how he makes it, right? He gives her the $1,400 one, and she hands him $400 back, and that's how that happened.
Yeah.
So as I was reading about this movie, I think Abigail like commented on that scene, and I guess something like that might have happened in real life because he said like suffice to say she never accepted checks ever again or something. Like she probably never accepted checks. So like lesson learned. So
Only once, shame on me.
exactly.
Yeah, I kind of figure most prostitutes accept cash if I had to hazard a guess. But okay. Well, this conversation took a turn.
Oh man.
He's proven he's very quick on his feet with
Yep.
the quick adjustment there, and also him when he was getting what was it, tailored up for his first flight.
Oh yeah.
They're saying, "Oh no, what we need you to do is write down the information for where you work." He's like, "Shit, even better!" Like he's quick to capitalize where he sees like a better opportunity.
There you go. Yeah, and I love that scene where Carl busts him for the first time and he just poses as another FBI agent just on the spot and gets out of it.
Yep.
Carl claims that he knew that Abagnale was just bullshitting in that scene and he just let him get away. I don't know if I buy that, man.
I think he was saying that to cover his ass a little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah.
I think in that moment he was bullshitting and Abagnale knew he was bullshitting because remember at the end of the movie when Abagnale has that whole factory of checks of
Yep.
like that's he's printing all over the place like it's raining checks in that factory, right? And Henretti starts to say like, dude, you're in this country, you stole from them, they're after you because of it. There are 12 cops outside right now. If you come with me, maybe you can live, but they want to kill you. And he's like, I think you're full of shit. I don't think there's anybody outside. I think I can walk away and you can catch me if you can. You won't find me. But at that point, Henretti was telling the truth, right? Abagnale doesn't get it right away because they weren't right outside. But as soon as he's handcuffed and goes outside, that's when they show up. But I think what I'm trying to say is, I think that's why Abagnale was calling him out because of that time where he was caught. He was caught for the first time and then posing as some other agency of the government going after this con artist, right? Is con artist the right word for what he was doing, or is there an actual term for like the kind of thing that he was
Con
doing?
artist, scam artist.
Yeah. I
Check
don't know if
for
you could call him a money launderer. I don't know. Yeah, there's probably a term for it, but I'm just too tired to think of it right now. But yeah, he's definitely a con artist.
Yeah,
he's a scammer.
or a scam,
Yeah.
or both in this case, right?
Hmm.
So another thing that I was wondering, which both of you guys were talking about just now, is like how he was in flight school or was pretending to be a flight attendant or whatever, or a co-pilot. He was pretending
Yeah.
to be a co-pilot. Did he ever actually learn how to fly? Because at the toward the end of the movie in the third act, where he pretends to have like this scholarship with a bunch of stewardesses, right? Like women who get to join him on a plane and they all board the plane with him. It's not like he was boarding his own plane, right? He was boarding another plane with them as all the passengers, or was he boarding his own plane and he was going to fly the plane? I was a little bit confused at that point.
He's probably boarding somebody else's plane and then like claiming that this was all part of some program. Oh yeah, they announced it last week. You probably didn't get the memo, but yeah, we've got all these stewardesses here and this being the 60s, I'm sure these pilots didn't object to, hey, all these pretty stewardesses are on my plane. Okay, great. Let's go to Spain. You know?
Yeah, I feel like if he actually flew the plane, then they would have made a point to make it apparent.
True.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I mean, they make it a point at how distracting all the stewardesses were because every man there was like tipping their hats to him, and he was walking directly in the center of all of them, so he was kind of like camouflaged or hidden. Right.
Yep.
That was his plan, and it
We
worked.
walked right past Carl at one point.
Mhm. Yeah. It was
Pretty
kind
cool.
of incredible.
There's definitely some retro sexism in a lot of this movie. Just guys saying, "Oh, boy, check out that little honey," like that sort of thing. Very. It's like Mad Men. I haven't seen that much of the show, but I'm told it has kind of the same vibe with regards to how they talk about like pretty much every woman on that show.
Yeah, The Queen's Gambit also on Netflix, which I think is a very good show. Kind of has hints of that as well, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie takes place. I mean, it started like in the beginning in 1963, so
Yeah.
it was made in 2002. But they had to show the examples of what it was like back then.
Yeah.
It's not like it was a movie that was made back then, and the movie was made with how the times were. It was made
Yeah.
in relatively modern times, within our century, our millennium, and taking place back then. But I get what you mean.
Oh no, no, I'm not criticizing the movie so much as the fact that this is how people actually acted back in the day, which is unfortunate, but it's true.
Right, right. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just wondered like that was the one last thing I guess I was really curious about was after that scene that we just got done talking about, the screen says 7 months later, I believe. And that's when Abigail is caught again, I think in France or Spain. That's where
I think it
Henry
was France.
was.
Yeah.
France, okay. So what happened when the plane landed? Did he actually like have a plan like with all these stewardesses, or did they just get lost or had to go back home or something? Like I'm just curious, like what was the plan after that? You know, that there was a 7 month span of him just running and saying "Catch me if you can" or whatever. You know, so
I actually thought about that too this time around. I'm like, yeah, like, did they just go back home or did they continue the program? Like,
it would be a
they
bogus
just,
program anyway. Yeah,
huh?
it would be a
Ditch
bogus
the
program. Yeah,
ditch the flight attendants in Madrid or something. Like,
I don't know.
I guess they could have kept going and nobody would ask questions since they didn't ask questions the first time around.
Possibly. I don't know. I mean, I guess it wasn't too important. I mean, if it was anything significant, they probably would have shown it, right? I guess, you know, those women probably just ended up back home, or they got jobs or something and they were fine, I guess.
Hey, you guys got scammed, right? Basically.
yeah, but you got to go to Europe, so yeah. But yeah,
Best scam ever.
jeez.
I mean, every single woman he came across, it seemed like it was mostly women that he was scamming, right? Except for, I mean,
Well, he scammed all those banks, you know, like the bank tellers,
true, yeah. I
the
mean,
doctor, you know. Yeah, he scammed everybody.
yeah, true. I mean, it seemed like the scams that were more like that had more emotion attached to it, those were like women involved, like the Jennifer Garner scene, and then the whole thing with Brenda, like he was about to marry Brenda, and then he had to confess to Brenda, right? So,
Yeah.
but you're right, he was conning everybody. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Like it's mostly women because there's like that extra weapon of using sex appeal to pull on emotional strings and stuff.
That's true. I mean, they cast Leonardo DiCaprio for a reason, so yeah, definitely.
Charm of the devil. Charm of the devil.
They showed that early on when he first went to one of the banks. Like he was trying to scam the woman. He pulled out the necklace, and then next thing you know, there was a guy there, and it showed how much harder it is to scam, a guy than a woman.
Yeah, true. Damn, that was like relatively close to the beginning too, right? So damn, I wasn't even thinking about that. And that was his dad who was teaching him the ropes, right? So I mean, this wasn't too clear for me because by the second into the third act, his dad is gone, right? But every time he was on screen, it was like he was complaining about the IRS and how they had to move because the IRS was like really on his ass and his on their family or something. So it was his dad who was like, I guess, kind of showing him the ropes of being a con artist, or not. Maybe I misunderstood that or misinterpreted that.
No, I think that was definitely part of it.
Part of it, okay, because the movie makes it a point that he wants to impress his dad, even though, like I said, he didn't meet his dad after the beginning in real life. But the movie makes it a point that like he really wants to like show his dad that he's something. Remember, at some point he buys his dad a car or whatever, but his dad says
Cadillac.
taxi home. Yeah, yeah, or take the subway home or something. The one last scene that I find one of the most memorable. Abagnale is really stressed out. You can tell that like he just feels really troubled, and he calls Henready to say he wants to make a truce. It's kind of ridiculous when you think about it, but I'm wondering if that's the same exact scene where Henready just goes like, "Wait a minute, you're just calling me because you got no one else to call." I don't know if that was that same scene, but first, if they weren't the same scene, like then the first scene I was mentioning felt more memorable to me. Both of those scenes were quite impressionable.
I think it was the same scene.
The
But
same
yeah,
scene.
because he would call him every year on Christmas.
Oh yeah, yeah. And then
Yeah.
when he's finally caught, Abagnale says it's gotta mean something that we're always seeing each other on Christmas or something along those lines.
Yeah.
I really felt bad to see that one scene where I think it was Christmas Eve. All the lights are out except for the Christmas tree, and Henretty's in the FBI building or the FBI office, and it's just him by himself. He said he let all his coworkers go home early, since he has no families to go home to, or something along those lines, right? So I really felt for him there.
That was actually one of the reasons why Frank questioned his integrity when they were in that last scene together. Frank had asked him on the phone if he had a family, and he said he didn't. But then when he saw him in person, he had the wedding ring. So that's another reason why he was questioning Henready's integrity, whether he was being truthful.
Yeah, yeah. I guess I feel like being honest, as simple as this may sound, I feel like being honest might be one of the themes of this movie. That sounds kind of silly when I just say it, but I feel like that might be one of the themes of the movie, is to like be honest and tell the truth. And lying can only get you so far in life. I guess that's one of the themes of the movie.
I mean, yeah, Frank isn't able to marry the woman he loves because he's caught in too many of his own lies.
Yeah, I mean, caught at
Uh,
the right place at the wrong time because he was at his wedding, and that's where
yeah,
Hanratty shows up.
yeah. Well, it just meant he put himself in a situation where he couldn't tell the truth and keep the girl, you know?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. There was one scene I wanted to talk about a little bit. It's brief, but I love the scene where Carl is with another FBI agent in prison. This is after Frank's been arrested, and they're going over like some checks that have probably been forged. And Carl gets this big smile on his face as he sees Frank do his thing. And it almost looked like Carl was proud of Frank. Like they're not related, Frank's not his son, but it almost felt paternal. It's just like he had this big smile, and it's like he's looking at the other guy saying, "Hey, how about my Frank? Huh? Look at what he can do." So they had an interesting relationship, I think.
Shit, after he caught him, that was his Frank.
Yeah, and I'm sure they got close because yeah, they did talk on Christmas a lot. They were kind of antagonists, but I think they sort of built up a respect for each other too.
And plus, I think a big reason why he was open to that relationship with him was because after he realized with the Barry Allen part that he's literally chasing a kid,
Yeah.
I think he started to have like a little bit more of a softer spot to him.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot about that. How he was calling himself Barry Allen on some fake checks or something, right? Because that's the Flash.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool touch. I was then when he started calling himself Dr. Connors at some point, I thought that was gonna be a reference to the Lizard from the Spider-Man comics, but it wasn't. That was like something else unrelated, I guess. But that was cool. That was funny. One of the best scenes, I think, and it was so like it was so easily acted, but even some of the most easily acted scenes goes to show how good these actors are, right? And it was a scene at the end, close to the same scene, or maybe even the same scene that you're talking about, JM, where they hand Abagnale a check. He opens it up out of the envelope and he's like, "It's fake." And the other FBI dude is like, "How do you know it's fake? You haven't even looked at it yet." And he's like, "Oh, well, the sides aren't perforated and you can kind of feel it." He gives this elaborate explanation, but he says it just so nonchalantly, like he knows this like the back of his hand, and he's not even showing off. He's just like, "Oh yeah, it's a matter of like this." You know what I mean? That
So
was
matter of factly, yeah.
yeah. It was easy acting because it's like it's just he's just saying his lines and he's just reading the script and going by the script, but it just felt so authentically real, and that's what makes it good. That's the point I'm trying to say. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So before we go into like I've pretty much spelled out all of my thoughts on this movie. So before we go into closing statements, or we can just consider this closing statements, I want to hear, just like JM suggested, Rums, what has made this one of your like favorite movies, all-time favorite movies?
It's always been a fun watch for me, and it always brings back like some nostalgia because I feel like the first time I ever watched it was either early on in high school or early on in middle school. It was a video they played during class. And I don't know, like little pieces of the movie always stick with me every time I watch. I know one thing, the "Do you concur?" I found myself asking people that throughout the years, like, "Do you concur? Do you agree?" Like,
Oh
it's
yes,
just
oh yes. That
any
is
little stuff.
actually, yeah.
Why didn't I concur? I should have concurred.
And that is an actual doctor thing. And he picks it up from watching a movie. It was brilliant. It's brilliant the way they put it in the movie.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. So
Lenny's watching Perry Mason to learn how to be a lawyer.
oh man. Well, yeah.
And then I think just the fact that I've been able to rewatch it and rewatch it, and I still love it. That's why it's one of my favorites.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah. That's essentially what I was gonna say too, is that like I would definitely watch this again. Like whether it's on TV or if I'm just in the mood or if someone wants to like is like thinking about a movie to watch and they suggest it, I'd be like, yeah, that's always a good movie to watch. So I'd be down for that. So yeah. Great film overall as far as closing statements go. I think the only downside I would have to it would be like the casting of Leo Cap, as handsome and charming as the dude is, he didn't look like a teenager to me. and of course like some of the great liberties that Spielberg took to make this a movie. I get that sometimes you have to do that for the movie, but other than that, that's pretty much all that I could say that's wrong or that I didn't like about it. JM, any closing statements before we go into ratings?
Nothing other than I'd be really interested to read more about the psychology of why we love stories about con artists, because we know this guy is defrauding people, he's ripping people off, he's probably ruined a couple of careers, but we root for him anyway. Maybe it's because he passes himself as an underdog. Maybe it's because, we'd all like more control in our lives. So it's vicariously fun to watch somebody who just exerts so much of it so confidently. But yeah, there's just something about a charming con artist movie that's just universally appealing. And this is one of the best of the genre, I think.
Yeah. And like my interpretation of it all, like by the end is like, this was meant to happen. Like he was meant to, be chased and then caught, because look how invaluable his knowledge is to the FBI,
Yeah.
so it's kind of meant to happen. If you can't beat him, join him. And he has probably helped solve so many cases. So I mean, the way he kept getting away though, like remember how he gets away on the plane, and like they show in the movie how he escapes like through like the side of the toilet. Yeah. And then his shirt is like all dirtied up. Was that like shit on his shirt or something? Like he's dirty.
Probably.
Right? Yeah.
Probably.
Um, he says in real life he didn't escape through the toilet. He escaped through like, some other compartment of the plane or whatever. But yeah, Realms. So did you want to have any other closing statements, or was that like pretty much your closing there?
I will say I do agree with you about, Hollywood casting, adults to play younger characters, but I think it kind of works with this one because although he's, a younger character, he's supposed to be faking like he's a lot of these older characters. So it kind of works in a sense.
Yeah.
Like the beginning, him pretending to be a teacher.
Yeah.
Teaching a class for a week, setting up a class trip, setting up parent-teacher conferences. It's a lot harder to believe it if he didn't actually look like youngish, like baby faced, but yet still able to pass as an adult.
Yeah, like a friend. Yeah, you're right.
Damn. I mean, he was what, like 28 when this movie came out, so he was still pretty young.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, well, my whole thing is that like his acting was so good that I didn't care that much. Like I didn't even really care. I mean, he didn't look the age, but I didn't care because his acting was so good. That's the way that I would put it.
But I totally get it though. Like especially watching shows like Degrassi, and then like they're casting damn near pretty much adults as teenagers.
Yeah. 13 Reasons Why. Yeah.
Roles.
Mm-hmm.
It was like one of those Karate Kid movies where the teenagers look like they're about 30 years old. That happens a lot.
I mean, with the main dude, Daniel or Danny, right? Like he was always convincing me that he was super young somehow, and he still does with Cobra Kai. But he's an exception.
I haven't seen that yet.
He's an exception. It's you should check it out. If you were a fan of movies, you should check it out. Yeah.
Okay. I was just gonna say there are some people who just don't age visibly. Like the meme is about Paul Rudd, like looking the same now as he did in the 90s, pretty much.
Paul Rudd, Pharrell, I think is another one.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like there's a lot of people they look young forever, and there's some people who are young and they just look old throughout their whole life.
Yeah, like this is not an actor, but like Bernie Sanders. So the Daily Show did this bit about like back when he was the mayor of Vermont in the 80s, in his 40s, and they showed all these old videos. He looked exactly the same as he does now, and you're like, now he's in his 80s, but he had like the same hairdo, like the white hair, So yeah, some people I guess just freeze in time.
Oh man, I guess he was a smoker or something. I don't know if because he looks old. He kind of looks his age now. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and he looked like he was in his 80s when he was in his 40s. So okay.
His mom was a smoker. It came out the womb with that Benjamin Button, but he didn't reverse.
Okay.
No offense. If you ever see
this. This movie was your choice, so you do the rating first.
I will say 10.
Valid.
What's up for that? Yeah.
But I respect any low ratings.
I mean, I was gonna give it a 9, and I thought that was gonna be the highest rating. But yeah, just great movie. Go see it if you haven't.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Man, I think I might like I was debating like how high I was gonna go with this. I was thinking should I give it an 8 because that would be kind of boring. Like an 8 would just be like a boring 8 because I've given so many reviews 8s. I've only ever given 2 perfect 10s. The first was Avengers Endgame, the next was When They See Us. So I'm wondering what I should give this. Oh man. All right, you know what? I was gonna give it an 8, but I'll give it a 9. There. 9.
For me, it's like I feel like it's my favorite. It's one of my favorite movies. I gotta give it a 10.
That's fair.
Might be one of the highest average ratings we've given so far, like a 9, a 9, and a 10. You know, it's got to be up there. We need to check the record books after this.
How you know this is good? That's how you know this is a good movie.
Yeah.
All right. So, you're up, Jam.
Okay, well, as fate would have it, I actually was going to nominate another movie released in the same year, 2002. It's called Big Trouble, not to be confused with Big Trouble in Little China. That's a different movie. This is just called Big Trouble, and it's based on one of my favorite novels, a comedic novel by Dave Barry. And it's one of those one of those movies where there are a lot of little subplots all interacting and like bouncing off each other and culminating in this big loud climax. And a couple future stars are in it. Zooey Deschanel's in it before she got famous. Sofia Farraga, I think, is in it before she got famous. So good movie. I think you're gonna have to rent it, unfortunately, but I think it's only like a couple of dollars on YouTube, like $3.
Not that unfortunate. Yeah.
So yep, Big Trouble.
Awesome.
And Catch Me If You Can. Good pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was a great episode of Movie Guys Improvise. Thank you all for listening. You have been listening to the voices of
Chill with Realms,
Jurassic Mark,
and Faerhad Targaryen. Catch us again in September for Big Trouble.
Yeah.
2 mice fell into a bucket of cream.
Yo, I swear to God, I was thinking about saying it.
Great minds think alike.
I do concur.
Yes, you do concur. Excellent.
Oh man, you guys.